everybody, it's me, Uncle Greg, aka the Free American Spirit. And in today's video, we're going to run the wires from the panels outside to the shed. So the first step is picking out where you want to put your inverter and all that other good stuff. And I picked out this corner, which of course, when you live like me and you go from a huge shop down to a small little shed, you have now what we call a blivet. That's 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. So it's taken me about an hour to move stuff over and consolidate it and throw away junk. Hey, I actually have a free shelf. But the plan is the wires are going to come in from there. So I'll have to take all those boxes down over there. They're going to come across, come down here. I'm going to take these two shelves off and I'll put a board going across there. And so I'll have the inverter, the box. And the reason I'm using that corner is that is the west side, the northwest side of the shed, which is the coolest. You know, I'd rather have them over there, and that'd be the shortest run of wire, but I figured, you know, the batteries will eventually fit down there. And of course, everything's a chore. I'll have to move that dryer bin. If you haven't got one of those and you have a shed, it's great. You sell them at Lowe's. You fill this up with water, and then when you do your laundry, the lint and everything gets caught in that water, and you just empty it. So that way you don't have to drill a hole through your shed. I've really tried to avoid drilling holes, but once I get the solar in there, I'll have the hole for those wires, and then I'll be able to connect these lights and stuff. So to make a long story short, let's hear a word from our sponsor, and we will be right back. Okay guys, welcome back. That's right, I sponsor myself, so you know what to do. Hit that like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, that helps, and leave a comment. YouTube loves when you leave comments, and I'll try to answer you or somebody else will. But you know what? Use that Amazon link if you're going to buy something, because it costs you nothing more, and we get a small commission, and then I bring you videos like this. Thanks, everybody. All right, kids. So I got my backer board here, which is going to fit up there. Cut the size, and on the back of it, I put this 2x4. And what this is going to do is when I flip the board around like that, it'll set right there on that cross member. And the reason for that is when my wife lifts this heavy thing up there, instead of making her hold it all day long, that'll kind of take most of the weight off her, and I can put the screws in, because once you put the components on this, it's going to be heavy. And of course, what would a project be without a mistake? Because I'm famous for mistakes, so you don't make them. All right, you see these extra holes here? When I marked the top of where those studs were, where that had to fit in that piece of 2x4 in the back, I flipped the board over without realizing it. And of course, I screwed it all together. And when I tested it out to make sure it hung right, it didn't fit. So I had to pull it down, take the 2x4 off, you know, remake the measurements, and put it back. So don't be a Greg and have extra holes. And you want to know what else I did for the first time in 6 decades? Look at that. I put a stupid screw hole right through my table. I've never done that, but this is what happens when you get old. You can see here that I've got enough room for another inverter here for future planning, so that'll be my main inverter. I kind of eyeballed those to get them straight at the top, and coming around here, I want to make sure I had enough room to get my hand in here, which I do. These wires won't be in the way going to the battery. I put my inverter down here because when my wife lifts this board up, I don't want it so top heavy that it's, you know, I'm flopping over. The wires will come out of the inverter this way and then go into the panel. And this panel is a full 100 amp panel instead of just a sub panel. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to run electric to it, but it'll give me all kinds of room here to use these. So it'll give me all kinds of room, and later down the line, if I actually take this off to the cabin in the woods or whatever, I could put a full 100 service through this, theoretically, if I wanted to. I doubt I'll ever do that. These have AC pass through, so there'll be no AC here except for what this generates. So that's the story there. I got it kind of lined up. It looks pretty good. The next step, I'll just put these screws here, and I'll put this bracket I marked little spots down there where this bracket goes, and I'll snap that in place. And then I'll have the wife lift it up, see if we can get it in place. And if it's not too heavy, I'll wire it all down here. If it's too heavy, I'm just putting the screws in, you know, temporary, and I'll just not unscrew them, but lift each component off and then put it on and then wire it while it's hanging. I'd rather wire it here because it's easier for me. You know, I'm old, I can't reach up. After further review of the play on the field, I had to move this down a little bit. See, I had it marked up there before, but then I wouldn't be able to reach the little nuts that hold this on. So I've got to be able to get an Allen screw right there. So if I ever have to take this transformer off, I can get to it. So I'll bump that up an inch and move that down an inch. And then we'll put all the screws in place. Hey, look at the wife go. She hung that bad boy up, getting her step to put those 2 screws on. You know, she's awesome. She's awesome. Hey kids, let's bring you up to speed of where we're at. So, a couple helpful hints. One is, when you're pushing these wires in, you push that in with a little screwdriver. I used my little Allen wrench, and when you push it in, it's pretty hard. Don't worry, you're not going to break it, but it's real hard. You'll hear it like click. Then you can stick the whole wire in. So tip number 1, double check and make sure you got it right. So black is line 1, red is line 2. This green wire, which I made white, see the white tape, is neutral, and then the ground goes over here. Now this ground was loose here, so double check these. So double check your connections, double check the grounds. I can't talk today. And I found out I'm using this PVC stuff with the compression fittings, so it's much easier to put these in because they'll move to wire this up. And then once you get that wired up, then you can slide these through here and connect both ends, which is a real pain to get that wire up over that. So you'll connect this, you know, slide it down, connect this, then feed the wires through and connect that up there, and then we'll connect it to that 30 watt. So what we got going on right now is I've already wired up a 30 amp double pole going over to my dryer. Okay, it's already plugged in even though nothing's live. Now I'm hooking up the transformer to this one. On this pole I have another 30 amp single pole which will go outside to my trailer because my trailer runs off a single pole 30 amp trailer. Then over here, this is where the Growatt will be attached to, this 50 amp. And then these are 20 amps. So the reason these are single pole 110 is when this transformer, you know, splits to 110, this will go over to my washing machine. The other one will go to the lights in the shed. I'll have another, if I expand, I'll have an empty slot here that will go to another Growatt if I want to explode, you know, do it. Leaves me 2 more slots, so I can either put a double pole item or a single. All right, kids, another little helpful hint. If you're using these type of strippers, when you go to put these on, hang on a second, I'll make sure the hole's lined up, but even when you do, just push it enough, you can feel it pushing down, spread it a little bit. You don't need to mash the heck out of it. You just want to spread a little bit. If you mash the heck out of it, you're going to booger up that wire in there. So you don't want to booger up any of those wires, do you? And once you have it like that, you can just use your little crimpers or your wire strippers, whatever they are, whatever you want to call them. You can tell that I went to electrical class. You know, this is hard to do with one hand. And then just pull it off like that. There you go. See how that looks? Okay. Now we'll do the same thing. We'll hook these up. We'll make sure this goes to the neutral bar. This is the green that will go to ground. The black will be number 1. The red will be line 2. You want to make sure that you keep the black and the reds all in the same orders. You know, some people say it doesn't matter, but it does, especially when you hook this transformer up. Don't ask me how I know. I'm not an electrician, but that's what my electrician buddy told me. Another thing about this right here, I have it, this is number 8 wire. I have it hooked up to going to be hooked up to a 30 amp breaker. I believe this holds 32 amps max. Now there's been some discussion that we should have a 25 amp there, but I don't know why you would want a 25 amp. I don't know. Call your electrician friend, call the place where you bought it from. But you know, to me, if you had a 25 amp and for some reason this breaker blew, you know, then everything else would be in 240. You would have no 120. So anything that's running off of those 120 legs may have an issue. I'm really not sure. So I'm sticking with the 30 for now till I get some confirmation, because that's what my electrician buddy told me. Tell me in the comments what you think about that. Just to let you realize, this is hard wire. In other words, it's not stranded like this wire that went to that dryer plug. The reason I use that is that the ground wire in there had a real wide one of these things. So what was happening was, you see how tight that is, and it keeps all the wires together here stranded, which is nice. That one was wider, and so when you tighten the screw down, it didn't keep the wires together. So I didn't like that. I went to solid wire. Now the other way I could have got around that was on the end of the wire in there, over there. I could have put a ferrule on the end of that and then stuck that in, but I didn't have any. I've got some ordered up. But this has the little plate that squashes down, so this should be okay to stick in there. We're going to find out here in a minute, and if not, then I'll show you how to put a ferrule on. Okay, so you can see there, that wire fit perfectly into that slot. And instead of using a big wide screwdriver, I'm using one of these square drivers. This is head on this is a number 2. So if you run down and buy one of these, I don't know what they are, $8 or whatever, life is better. It fits the breakers and it fits the ground bars. Okay, so I would do that. And on this ground bar, another little tip, I actually backed all these out because there was a couple in there kind of sideways, and they made like a little screeching sound. So I backed them out, screwed them all the way back in, then backed them out, put the wire in, just to make sure I didn't cross thread anything. Another little helpful hint, you want to make sure everything is really snug. After I get all this hooked up, I'll go through and wiggle every wire and then retighten again, and that'll be another chance that I can make sure that every wire is hooked the way it should be. Let me know what you do. Running this number 8 ground wire through the wall there, I'll show you outside in a minute, and it'll come up here around the top, or probably down here at the bottom, up to this main ground. So I've really got to get with the electrician again. I'm second doubting myself whether I'll need this bonded screw. I think I will, because this is a sub panel kind of all by itself. But anywho, I'm hoping that if anything ever bad happens, I may have to use insulated wire through here because it's touching this wood. I'm not sure about that either, but I'm going to hook it up this way for now. Sorry about the loud air conditioner. And then that way, I took off a couple screws right here, fished it down, and this is all metal, so it only touches that little bit of wood right there. I don't think it's gonna do anything, but maybe it'll burn my barn down if something drastic happens. I tend to doubt it. I'll double check. So I just got to finish pounding this into the ground and hooking up the wire down there. Like those socks, buddy? Gold toe from my daughter. Christmas. Hey, let me know what you do with the ground, okay? Right here I've got 2 lines knocked out that are going to go to those 2 single pole 20 amp breakers. And what I'm going to do is make a box here. Now most people will put 2 in here, and they'll put 1 line and then put the jumpers over to the other one, so you would have both sockets off of 120 amp breaker. What I'm going to do is run 2, because this one's going to be for the washing machine and this one's going to be for power tools or whatever. Now if you notice, the lid on this box sticks up some. The reason it's like that is because these fasten to the lid, and then the lid fastens to that. So once I get that set, then I just run my lines, and I would have to put a ground here, but it's raised, you can see, so when the ground screw goes through, it doesn't go through the wood. You don't have to like drill out a hole in your wood or something. It's raised up, but I got to go find a ground screw. Back to this. So what happens is these little tabs here, you pop these off. Okay, you just take, like you do with the pull-out plug, you just pop it off, and they have little threads in them. And those threads go to the back of this. Now normally when you have a box, you have the threaded piece sticking here, and that sits down, and they're stuck to the box. This is stuck to the lid. So when you put these up through, you know, like that, these will go in the back. You'll hold it in place and run the screw through this way. You'll also notice they're not fitting in, not only because of this, but it's because of these tabs. And if you look at your tabs, there's a little score mark. So if you take your lineman's plier and put it right here and just pop that off, it'll bust on that score mark. Then these will fit up in. So just to recap, each one of these is going to get a line. Okay, you're going to get a neutral, a hot, and a ground going directly to them instead of using just one and making a jumper. That way they're on two separate lines. I'll get it together and show you what it looks like. Alright, just to show you, see I've got the 4 tabs off the mouse ears, but it still won't fit. So if you look on the back of this, see before you didn't see a score mark really, I guess you could have. You got to take these 2 off too. So let's get those off. Another little side tip. I've got my needle nose holding the flat part and this above the score. And the reason is because this little piece here bends. You don't want to take a chance on breaking it. So use both. Alright, I got the first one put in just to show you what it looks like. So here we go. It's sticking through. That's how it'll look when it's finished. However, I got to back these screws out because obviously when I run my wires down, I wouldn't be able to screw my wires in there. So I'll back those screws out all the way and I'll be able to do that. And then the next one I'll just hook the wires first and put it in. But I wanted to show you how that looked. Well, we're making a little bit of progress. It's taking longer than I thought. I had to go get some cable splitters. It's really difficult for me to use a knife and try to split these wires. But anyways, this is the RV box. It's an outside box with things like that. Kind of weather resistance. Why they put that lid on top, I don't know, because you really can't get anything. I'm going to mount it on the outside of that wall. There's no knockout except for the side and whatnot. I'm really not sure if I want to run a wire through that wall, how I would dope it up and keep it, not dope it up, but silicone it up and keep it from coming in, because, you know, this is the same siding. It's not a flat wall. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole through that 2x4 straight through and run my wire through that. And in the back here, since there's no knockout, this would be the back. I'm just going to use a step-up drill bit, which looks like that. I'm going to drill me a 1/2 inch through there, and then I can mount that to that 2x4 on the outside, and then run my Romex and whatever right through there. We'll see how that works out. I may not. I got to see how that's, you know, but I'll let you know. Either way I do it, I'll show you. So I drilled a hole here for a 1/2 inch and a hole here for a 1/2 inch. These aren't really knockouts. They look like they are in the pictures, but when you get it, you need to get one of those tools, you know, that actually punches a hole. I just use that step-up bit. In addition to that, they've got this lid on top, which that does nothing, because the way this thing is, the wires go in the side there, but the screws are in the back. So when you put this plate on right there, it faces like this. So you can't get to the screws anyways. So you have to take this, unscrew this, you know, off of that, unscrew that off, because this sits like that. And okay, here's another little handy tip. If you find that you cut this too long, you have a couple choices. You can try to take a knife and cut around there without hitting that wire, or you can take it apart from that end, pull the wire all the way back out, cut it the length, rehook that back up, or you can use this tool. I'll have a link in the description. This is for a big wire. Basically it has a screw there. See that little razor blade right in there? It adjusts it. So as long as you keep this fairly straight, you know, you'll want to make sure it's straight. You just put this on the on that thing like that. Slip it through there and then go around. You just need to make it straight so it doesn't spiral. and you cut off a nice little 2-inch piece like that, because had I not cut that 2 inches off, my wire would have been too short to reach the 30 amp breaker that's going to sit right here. But now I got all kinds of room. Alrighty. Well, there you go, guys. I've got all the AC hooked up. Like I said, that's just temporary until I move it over. But anywho, tomorrow we will run the wires from the solar panels and put it in the Growatt. I don't have a battery yet. They're still waiting, you know, the shipping container disaster. But when a battery gets here, I'll hook that up. I'm not going to have AC going in. So tomorrow I'll hook up those PV wires, and then I'll run through the menu and get everything set up. And at least I'll be able to check maybe in the middle of the day how many amps and watts it's pulling, and then I can check all these circuits and double check them. But before I plug those in and turn it on, I'll double check everything and run the meters on them just to make sure they're where they're supposed to be. So hey guys, thumbs up, share the video, leave a comment, ask me a question, and use that Amazon link for anything you want, because you know that helps me put out videos like this. And subscribe. See you later.